I think that, and I expect that Avison will do for this Long Island City market what Google did for the Midtown South marketplace, and a little bit more of a stretch, in my personal opinion, what the Hudson Yards development, with the help of the city and the state, have done for the Midtown office marketplace. I'm looking to test those expectations this morning, as I said. And I want to thank you all for joining us. I have a very easy job today, and I just did half of it. The other half is to introduce my partner, the head of the capital markets team in New York City, and an outstanding real estate investment professional. And that's Mr. James Nelson. James is a superstar. He's young enough for me to describe him as a rising superstar, because I sincerely believe that his very best days ahead as a real estate professional at Avison Young lie before him. So James, let's kick this thing off, and let's give this dedicated group of people who came here this morning some value regarding Long Island City.
Really great to be here. Our team is coming up on our first full year, so February will mark 1 year with Avison Young. And what we have created is one unified sales group that covers the tri-state area by asset class. So if I could just ask the team members from the Tri-State Investment Sales Group to stand up, just so they know who they are. Thank you, Tim, for starting the class. I know that was you who started today's class. I appreciate that. So they shouldn't bow yet, because as Arthur said, we're just getting started, but we're having a lot of fun, and we've come to Avison Young at an incredible time in its trajectory. Arthur and I are 2 of 450 principals who own the company, so this is a privately held company that actually wasn't even in the U.S. until 10 years ago, and now we have over 50 offices here, and we've been growing very strategically and bringing on other principals to help lead us in other markets. We're really honored earlier last year to receive a substantial investment from Case of the Poet to allow our future expansion, which has led to our acquiring GBA in Europe. So we'll now be in 27 countries with over 100 offices, but I know you all are here today to hear about New York and specifically Long Island City. To set the stage, I thought it would be helpful first to give a backdrop on what happened in 2018, and then we're going to make some real predictions for this year, and it'll be a great segment way for our panel, which I'm also very excited hearing from. So let's get started. Okay, so 2018 was a year that surpassed the 10-year average. It was a very strong year by all accounts. We are looking at all investment sales in New York City. They totaled $45 billion, which registered a 35% increase year over year from 2017, and totaled 1,565 sales. That was a 10% increase. And some of the other reports that you might read, sometimes you see 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 sales. These are investment properties, so we don't include 1 to 4 families, but all other asset classes. So again, looking at the 10-year average at $41 billion, and one day I will stop referring back to the peak in 2015, where we achieved, the market had $77 billion in sales. So I think we now know that that really wasn't reality, and we probably need more years like last year to continue to build on. Okay, so what happened asset class by asset class? Multifamily, dollar volume up 64% citywide over last year, $13 billion in sales. over 750. That was also an increase. That being said, cap rates expanded. When cap rates expand to 4.5%, what happens is pricing goes down. So average pricing per foot is $525 a foot. Office, really a banner year. Over $18.8 billion of trades. That was a 17% increase, over 164 sales. The number of sales was flat, but again, you can see this was more significant sales this year. That was their cap rates compressed to 4.89%, leading to an average price per rentable square foot of $949. Land sales, $4.5 billion. That was a 64% increase year over year. And I think we're going to talk about each of these asset classes and why each of these happened. But at least from a citywide perspective, with the new Affordable New York plan, so a lot more rental development, certainly in the boroughs, that help with that number. Average price per buildable. Again, think of these price per foot, price per buillables more as a metric, because when we talk about them citywide, it's a little tougher to really, each property is individual, and so these values can range, but again, this is the median at 275 a foot, a buildable foot. Retail, no big surprise here. So there were $4.7 billion of sales, and for all the challenges of retail, there was more retail sales than development. 365 of those sales, which was also an increase. Now, this part I do not understand. Cap rates actually compressed, so the returns came down, but you'll see there was a pretty significant drop in overall value on a price per foot at just $1,000. So I think we can now talk about what happened in Manhattan versus the boroughs, because that's really going to set the stage for our conversation later. So if you look at the percentage of dollar volume by sale, in 2016, Brooklyn, Queens, and the Bronx accounted for 23% of all the New York City sales, and then rose in both 2017 and 2018 to 28% of total dollar volume. That's a record as far as we've been tracking. And look at Queens. Even before the Amazon news, you had 7% of all sales happening in Queens in 2016. That rose to 8%. And then 11% last year. So imagine what's going to happen now. Okay, now a lot of you are also interested in what's happening here in Manhattan, and I think it might be a little more helpful to understand what's going on with pricing as we talk about the various asset classes here. So in Manhattan, there was $24 billion of sales last year. That was a 37% increase year over year. Number of sales up 31%. But again, there's only 392 sales in Manhattan last year. So if you bought a building here, congratulations. It's it remains a seller's market, and always there are always supply and demand restraints. But look at the percentage of office. Again, 54%, over half the dollar volume. Again, really driven by those significant office trades. But when you look at the pie chart for by number of sales, it's much more well-rounded. It's actually the multifamilies that account for the majority of the sales at over a third. We do have, and it might be a little tough to see from your seats, a heat map that shows where the sales activity is. Blue represents office, and the size of the circle represents the deal size. So, for example, Google's purchase of Chelsea Market for $2.4 billion, which was the number one top sale last year, is the biggest circle down in Chelsea. But it's interesting, look at how much sales activity there is in that Midtown South region. And so, we have all this data. We love sharing information. So come to us. And I want to thank our operations team, Erica Dean, Ethan Bidna, who helped prepare this information. We can slice and dice these numbers anyway. So you say, James, I want to know about all the office sales in, Hudson Yards. No problem. We can do that, and I think it's very helpful to understand what is going on in each of these markets. Okay, so these are really always the headline grabbers as far as what were the top sales last year in Manhattan. Chelsea Market, again, $2.4 billion. I wrote that when Google bought 111 8th Avenue in 2010 for $1.8 billion, that was the most important sale of the decade. And clearly after that, you look at all the tech and all these things happening, and I have no doubt that helped pave the way for our Amazon news today. But Google has very quietly and consistently been adding jobs here in New York City. And if you look, they have expanded from 111 8th Avenue to Chelsea Market to the Super Pier, and now looking to go to St. John's Terminal. So their footprint, I believe, is somewhere around the neighborhood of 4 million square feet. I've heard they currently have 7,000 employees here. That could also grow to 25,000. I mean, that is really significant, because when you think about every Google employee who's here, every Google job, and how many other jobs that come as a result with all the synergies of what they do. 666 Fifth, Brookfield, came in big last year, buying the office portion for over $1.2 billion. Silverstein buying ABC's former headquarters, a massive development project of over $1.1 billion. Terminal Stores, Normandy Partners purchases for $900 million, and then Oxford Group expanding at St. John's, $700 million. So interestingly, a lot of these were domestically driven sales, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that later. Okay, so what happened for each of the asset classes? So in Manhattan, there were multifamily sales that increased 9% year over year to $3.4 billion. And number of sales was 136, so there was actually less sales. Cap rates actually compressed to 3.66%. Average price per foot settled to $9.95 a foot. This is in comparison to the peak, which was 2016, where the high water mark was $11.27 a foot, or a 3.55 cap. And you're going to see in our predictions later that we think this is going to change very quickly. Retail, $1.7 billion in trades just in Manhattan, 63% year-over-year growth, over 60 sales. Cap rates expand over 50 basis points to almost 5% in Manhattan. That was unheard of 2 years ago. Average price per foot drops 31%. So that's really where you see what's happened in the retail space, and no question that in some of these corridors, retail rents have dropped 50%, even 30, 40 cents on the dollar. But the good news is when there are price corrections here, there's so much capital sitting on the sidelines looking to jump in. So again, you see pricing goes down 31%, volume goes up 63%. Manhattan office, again, huge year in Manhattan, $13 billion in trades, a 22% increase over 54 trades. Cap rates at 4.3% here, and price per rentable at $9.69. Rentable high water mark here was again in 2016 at $11.78 a foot, and I believe, I'll save it till the end, but I think we're going to be surpassing that this year. Okay, development sales, $3 billion in activity in Manhattan, 100% year over year, 58% decrease in sales, over 4.7 million square feet of new development, representing an average price per buildable of $655, almost a record from the $681 that was established. Again, remember, when we are averaging land sales, we're not just talking about residential high-end boutique sites, we're also averaging in commercial sites, unentitled sites, and so that again, think of that more as a measuring stick. Okay, foreign investment. So for New York City, and I should have checked the AFIRE, Association of Foreign Investors report before I came, but for the last 3 years, New York has been the #1 city for global investment. This past year, it accounted for 20% of the total dollar volume, and but a smaller percentage, only 4% of the sales. So when the foreign investors are coming in, they're coming in a much more meaningful way, typically larger office product, a lot of recaps, and what's, I think the biggest takeaway here is that foreign investment as a percentage of total dollar volume has decreased 50% from 2015. So in 2015, there was a lot more foreign investment. And this year it's really been, or last year was really the year of the domestic investor. And Canada continues, China always gets, all the headlines, but Canada has been a consistent top 3 investor easily for the last 10 years, probably, for the last 20 years, and they take the top spot with 41% of all foreign investment this year, followed by Germany and the Netherlands. We had saw some people in the audience earlier who came in from the Netherlands, so welcome. We like foreign investment, but China down to only 2% last year. Unbelievable, going from a third of foreign investment in 2015 down to 2%. Okay, so now we get to the predictions, and then we're going to get to the main event. Okay, so the idea with these predictions is not just to throw out, general statements where, they can, we can always say, oh, well, we were kind of right. I always like the Bob Dole report from Merrill Lynch, where they made actual quantifiable predictions, and then they rated himself the following year. So I will stand in front of you next year, and we'll grade ourselves A to F on if we were right with these actual predictions. And hopefully this will be helpful to you all as you are looking to make your investments. So number one, the good news is New York City dollar volume will continue to surpass the average. We're going to see another year of $45 billion in total sales, driven by the office sale market, the boroughs, and unsuccessful refis. So I didn't really talk about that, but I think you're going to see a situation where a lot of owners are going to go to refi this year, saying, they're used to saying, okay, I'm ready for my cash out, back up the truck, and the bank's going to say, whoa, time out, it turns out your loan to value is too high. We're going to need you to contribute some more equity. And so what we're going to see is a lot of owners are probably going to sell as a result. But the office market is certainly going to help drive that $45 billion in activity. Okay, so multifamily sales dollar volume is going to drop 23%. It's going to drop from $13 billion citywide to $10 billion due to rent regulation. There's 18 bills being proposed at City Council. We're waiting to hear what happens at Albany. We could do an entirely different breakfast just on what's going on there. We probably should. But cap rates are going to expand 23 basis points up to 4.75% citywide. So again, a lot of question marks about how you're going to be able to operate. You're going to see a lot more of these units staying in the rent-regulated program, taking away the ability to achieve fair market rents. Now, each of these challenges also create opportunities. So I did write an article on multifamily that, for mom and pop owners, they have no business owning multifamily anymore. I mean, this is such a technical business that for those of you who are experienced operators and know how to navigate this, there's going to be opportunities. We are selling portfolios now where owners who've owned these properties for 50 years are saying, we're done. We are out. We cannot take this anymore. We don't even know how to follow the rules, and it's a full-time job. So where there are challenges, there are going to be opportunities, but this will put a little bit of a damper on sales. Okay, next one. Retail sales will stabilize, and we've had some great activity, but that cap rate number, again, I don't know how that ended up at 4.75%. You're going to see cap rates citywide raised to 5.25% for next year. I mean, again, when have you ever had the opportunity to, buy into New York City, Manhattan, and be able to take advantage of cap rates that are north of 5% while being able to borrow money in the fours? I mean, you are, once again, going to be able to achieve some positive leverage. Okay, Manhattan office sales will set an all-time record at $1,250 per rentable square foot. This is really driven by a lot of these new construction sales, and I read in a report that this past year there was over 129 leases signed in the triple digits. So you hear about Chelsea meatpacking rents now being achieved at $150, $180 a foot. When you look at what that does to sales values, you're going to see office trades that are in excess of $2,000 a foot. It's going to be another big year there. We're all watching some pretty large billion-dollar-plus office buildings right now that are currently on the block, which will certainly help. So again, if Resi takes a little bit of a break, it slows, the office is going to pick up the pace. Development sales, they're going to experience a 20% uptick. A lot of that's going to be attributed to what's going on in the boroughs, opportunity zones. We've done multiple panels on the opportunity zones. I'm not going to go into all that again, but it's going to be, it's real, it's here, it's going to be a major, major driver. Okay, foreign investments going to remain flat. Domestic investors are going to continue to lead the way. Okay, and here it is, and this is our segue for our next panel. The boroughs are going to account for over 30% of the sales volume due to the opportunity zones and the Amazon effect. So just to set the stage on how great this news was for Amazon, and I will quote Bill Rudin, who said, getting Amazon is like winning the Super Bowl for the next 50 years every year. So, New York Times spoke to how this will bring 25,000 jobs to Long Island City, $3 billion in state and city incentives. Bloomberg says that Amazon would spend $2.5 billion and create 8.5 million square foot campus. The New York Post reports that they saw a 30% increase in residential sales already compared to November 2017. Let's see, I think Curbed said that this was good news. CNN said that Amazon is to bring in over $27 billion in state and local tax revenue. So these are all incredible things that we are about to experience. So with that, we've got a great panel. If I could welcome up David Brous, who is president of Brous Realty and chair of the Long Island City BID Board of Directors. Liz Luskin, president of the Long Island City Partnership and the LIC BID, and Jeremy Schell, who's principal of TF Cornerstone. So give them a round of applause. You all can start with a little, and what involvement you had in this Amazon news. So, David, if you want to start.
James, thank you.
Yeah.
No,
Good.
Thank you. So thank you for having me. James, good friend and an incredible columnist and real estate professional. Thank you for your market predictions. We'll be here in a year and see whether you're right about any of that stuff. As a long-suffering Jets fan, I love the Bill Rudin comment of 50 years of Super Bowls, because I've had a lifetime with no Super Bowls in my poor team, as my sister knows. So this is an incredible year, an incredible announcement that Amazon has brought. I am president of our family's real estate company called Brous Realty. We've been around since 1927, owning a portfolio of office buildings in Midtown and Long Island City, and some residential buildings as well. I also chair the Long Island City Business Improvement District, so my part-time job is working for Liz Luskin to my right, and obviously a big fan of what's going on in Long Island City. Thank you.
Okay, hi, I'm Liz Luskin. I'm the president of the Long Island City Partnership, which is the local development corporation for the Long Island City area. So that includes about 5 square miles of New York City. Think of roughly 34th Street to 86th Street, 1st Avenue to 10th Avenue. Long Island City is a lot bigger than people recognize, and there's a lot going on there. And I thank you for letting us give out our most recent neighborhood snapshot to give you a sense of that, and some maps and so on. The partnership is rooted in the industrial past, present, and future of the area in terms of jobs and so on, but works really to make the area successful as an authentic, uniquely mixed-use district. So commercial, production companies, but also residential, cultural, tech, you name it, we got it. And it's extremely exciting, all extremely well located, not only connecting to the rest of Queens, Long Island, Brooklyn, etc., but also obviously right across from Midtown Manhattan. We operate the Long Island City Business Improvement District as well, which David chairs. On one of the maps in here, you can see the boundaries of the Business Improvement District, which are more focused in the commercial core. And in that area, we also do supplemental services, on-street service, usual BID things that you see. We were really excited when Amazon came out with the RFP, and a group of board members, including some of the folks here and some others, but really we have our board is a very diverse set of stakeholders. Just said, you know what, we look at all the boxes, we check them, let's try. And here we are. So we're excited to welcome Amazon into the neighborhood and to help people understand what a great neighborhood Long Island City is. I was really, we were all kind of laughing to ourselves when the statements were, well, it's obvious they would go to Long Island City, when we've all been spending a lot of years trying to help people understand what a real treasure Long Island City is. So thank you all for now seeing how obvious it is.
And Jeremy, first of all, I got to say, that is an incredible headshot. I am still using my high school yearbook photo. Blue steel or what, but I'm loving the look. All right.
Thank you, James. All right, so Jeremy Shell, principal at TF Cornerstone. We're a family business, in the film business for almost 50 years now. And we own a portfolio of commercial and residential buildings here in New York City, in Brooklyn, Manhattan, Queens, and in Washington, D.C. We're well known, especially in Long Island City, for the stuff that we've created on the waterfront in Queens West, where we created a community or campus on the waterfront of about 7 buildings, over 3,000 apartments. We were, I guess I can go into the long history, but the short of it and our involvement here with Amazon, aside from being an active developer in Long Island City, was a little over 2 years ago. We got control of a site on the waterfront north of the project that we had completed in Queens West through an RFP that the EDC had conducted, and we proposed to create a mixed-use development, which included a lot of community uses, a lot of speculative office space, and some multifamily in 2 different buildings. And that required going through a public process, which we were on the way. During that process, we got together with Liz and a bunch of the other members of the Long Island City Partnership and submitted a proposal to, ultimately to Amazon through the EDC, to sort of throw our hat in the ring and try to attract Amazon into the community. And we proposed our site as one of the sites that Amazon should consider in Long Island City. And fast forward a little over a year later, after the initial submission to Amazon, they selected Long Island City and specifically part of their campus plans on those sites that we have control over on the waterfront. So we are going to be partnering with Amazon in building the campus with them.
Fantastic. So just to help set the stage, and I would encourage you all to look this up for yourselves, but this is the memo of understanding between the state, the city, and Amazon is all public record. You can find it online. And I just want to read a couple excerpts so we all know what's going on. So this was between Empire State Development and the NYC EDC. They wrote this on November 12, 2018. And this memo of understanding called for 4 million square feet of commercial space with the creation of 25,000 new jobs with an average wage of over $150,000 annually within the next 10 years. And within 15 years, this could expand to 6 to 8 million square feet with 40,000 new jobs. So this is, again, incredibly exciting news. Now, unfortunately, and I don't think I was able to get the map of this, but if you go in and search for this memo of understanding, there is a map that shows you where the targeted area is, and part of this, there is city-owned land, which will support 1.5 million of buildable, and along with TF Cornerstone's project, we'll be able to accommodate the bulk of the campus. I got to say that the one thing, and being a broker, I love this. This was a one-page agreement between the NYC, the Empire State Development, and Amazon up to $1.7 billion in incentives. So I wish I could do a $1.7 billion deal on one piece of paper, but really interesting to see how they did it. And of course, then they go and break it down into 20 pages thereafter. But again, I just want everyone here to understand the magnitude of what's going on here. But before we get to that, Liz, maybe we could back up because, and you saw in the report that I did before, that Long Island City has already been on a tremendous upswing. Maybe you could tell us over the last, whether it's 5, 10 years, what is the development that's happened between residential and commercial? Maybe talk a little bit about Cornell Tech, Roosevelt Island, how that has helped. But yes, give us a background to help set the stage.
Thank you. I'll try and be brief. There's a lot to talk about. A year ago or so, we were found to be the fastest growing neighborhood in the country, which was based on our residential growth, a title that we still maintain. And if you look at the numbers that I gave you, since 2006, when this sort of new wave of development really started, close to 20,000 units have been completed, and there's another up to 10,000 on the way. Now, that's for a large area that includes Hallett's Point and so on, but still, the numbers are really staggering. And this is, I like to joke, explosive growth 30 years in the making. The original plans for the waterfront, which date back to the late 80s, were for a commercial district with some residential to support it. The original plans for Queens Plaza Court Square, when the zoning was changed in 2001, were for a commercial district with some residential to support it. And really, other than David's building, that we are lucky to have our offices in, I think all of the sort of 3 big commercial buildings all had some government support. So the city building, the Department of Health building, and now the JAX, which Tishman Speyer is building on city land, 1.2 million square feet, a very exciting development. So this is a story that you've also seen in downtown Brooklyn, and it's the result of many, many things, but what we've had is this massive residential growth, and the commercial activity has really been around investment sales in pre-existing large-scale industrial buildings like the Standard Motors Products Building, which RXR owns, and Factory and Fauci. Savannah owns the city building, but they also own the Fauci building. So there's a lot of activity, as I say, behind those brick walls. But there's been this struggle for a long time. How do we get the complementary commercial growth to provide the jobs for the people in the area, but also to create that live-work neighborhood that everybody talks about talent wants to be in? And we see that increasingly today, not just at the, Queens has always been a working family, working class housing borough, but what I see more and more is this sort of C-suite level at companies choosing, they're empty nesters now, why am I making a huge commute from the lovely suburbs when I can live in a beautiful, highly amenitized building that David has built for me, or that Jeremy has built for me, and have a short commute. And it's been a huge struggle. The financing around commercial, everything, it's just very difficult to do spec office buildings in the boroughs. So this is a real fulfillment of a strategy that has been embraced and built upon going back to the late 80s. And it's tremendously exciting how that's all going to fit together. We've been having good absorption in the residential that's been created, but we've got another 10,000 on the way, and we want it to be absorbed by people who live and work in the neighborhood. That helps support 24-hour demand for retail and other services. It keeps people rooted in the community. We are also a major cultural district. We have people from all over the world come. We want people from the neighborhood to be there as well. So it is the strategy, and this is one of the reasons why it seemed like applying for this was a good thing, because as I said, we checked their boxes and they would be helping us fulfill the strategy without Long Island City needing to twist itself into a pretzel to become something that it didn't intend to be just to fit Amazon's needs.
Great points. So, David, before I ask you, I want to ask the audience, and I'll make this a little easier, because I think in the beginning, when Amazon put out the RFP, I think it was close to 400 cities that responded, and then how many finalist cities were there? Was there maybe 24 or so? Okay, so let's say at the time, New York City, Long Island City was in that second round, if you will, with 24 cities. By show of hands, how many of you all thought that New York City was going to bring Amazon here? Okay, so David, and I have my own thoughts. I mean, this was a complete surprise to me as well. And of course, I thought that we'd be an incredible candidate for it, but my sense was always, well, if they wanted to come to New York, they would have just done it. I mean, they're already here, and maybe they were doing this to make a statement and go to Detroit or Newark or somewhere else. But David, did this surprise you? And maybe you could then talk about. Oh, okay.
Sure. So anyone who raised their hand is a Monday morning quarterback. No one thought this was coming to New York City. At least me and Liz and Jeremy, who spend so much of our time in Long Island City. We bought our building in 1980. The rezoning that Liz talked about was 2001. We have had a struggle trying to get more and more office tenants to come to New York City and to Long Island City. Why? The exact issues that people have been bringing up with the Amazon HQ2 when it was announced, about two years ago now. It's a high cost of doing business. It's a struggle getting to and from the airport. It's a struggle getting on the subway. It's a struggle paying for my rent. These were all the things that were drilled into us when HQ2 came out, and that's why they were going to Dallas. That's why they were going to Nashville. That's why they were going to Columbus, Ohio. And all these low-cost cities had these great opportunities and great job programs, and Newark was bending over backwards and giving them billions of dollars in free land. And what people didn't focus on, and probably we didn't focus on enough, was the fact that we have the most talented workforce in the planet. New York City has this incredible magnetism of bringing people to our city that are the best and brightest of their college class. People are fighting to get a job in New York City when they're graduating college. Why? Because we have a great confluence of everything. We have incredible culture, incredible immigration, incredible talent in terms of finance and media, technology. This is all happening here, and you can't look at any other city that has that type of confluence. When you start adding that to what's going on with the transportation that Long Island City now has overlapped with what New York City has got going on, when you look at where else they could have gone in New York City, and people are bemoaning the fact that Long Island City is very congested and all that. We've got 8 subway lines in Long Island City that are crisscrossing Long Island City, basically back and forth to Manhattan at various points between Midtown Manhattan, as well as going down into Brooklyn with the G train. You've got incredible ferry service now. You've got incredible bus service. You've got city bike service. You've got kayaking. You've got all sorts of great ways to hit that river. Long Island City has this incredible opportunity to be able to build off of those 8 subway lines that when you look at Hudson Yards with that one subway line with the 7 train that's going to be incredibly congested when all those buildings are filled out, that type of development, Hudson Yards, would not be any kind of an impact on Long Island City. So when we kind of start looking at what are the reasons why Amazon came and start overlapping the Opportunity Zone Fund, start overlapping the incredible benefits that are already as of right in terms of REAP and in terms of ICAP, and all of that starts ending up becoming, boy, we should have thought about this more. And maybe the doom and gloom about it's too high of a cost of business coming into New York City, maybe it got overplayed. So the 3 people that raised their hands, kudos to you. One of them was Arthur. And so, yeah, in retrospect, the city and the state and Liz made an incredible offer to Amazon to come to our neighborhood. It all makes sense in retrospect. The concern that I have is that a lot of people are looking at the negative side, and Jeremy is armed with a lot on the equation of why this is so positive to our neighborhood, positive to New York City. You don't want to send the message back to people in Seattle that we don't want you. We absolutely want Amazon here. Just as much as Nashville and just as much as Northern Virginia are opening up the welcome mat, New York City and people in this room need to also offer that welcome mat out to Amazon, because this is an incredible opportunity for us.
That last piece is so important. Yes.
I just want to just add I think nothing like this obviously has happened to Long Island City or New York City. This is the largest jobs program, project that's ever happened. But if you were paying attention, the tea leaves were there. They were reading in the right direction. I said that the Jacks had to be built with city support, but 80% leased by the time it was announced. Bloomingdale's is moving their headquarters there. We had major tech companies moving in. Altice USA has moved their headquarters from Long Island. And we've also been pursuing whether life sciences made sense. And we came out with a report right before the Amazon announcement, and Alexandria bought a building right before that as well. Life sciences, like Amazon, is now shifting where it wants to be because it needs to attract top talent. And this includes not just top talent in the PhD level, but also people, lab techs, all these kinds of things. Just as Amazon is going to have people working in all kinds of skill set areas there. And what life sciences is recognizing, as well as other industries, is that Long Island City makes great sense for that, and it is a place worth investing in. You're going to see a lot of activity around that. So it's not like nothing was happening. There's, snooze and then, oh, Amazon is here. Amazon is just the biggest, most visible example of a wave that has been quietly building for those who are paying attention. So yes, when we say we knew it made sense, there's other people who were drinking the Kool-Aid as well. None of them are as big as this.
Yeah, look, I think that's the point. I think when we, for those of us that have been in the community for a long time and have been part of its evolution and see the assets that exist, it made a lot of sense. We knew right out of the gate that this is where they should end up. That said, where I think even we were skeptical is, would a Seattle-based company get it, see the vision, and see themselves here? Just like a lot of New Yorkers who probably haven't even spent much of any time in Long Island City also sort of have those thoughts that they're not as educated, they haven't spent the time with me, they don't see the assets because they're not in front of them. But it's like kudos to Amazon for among over 250 candidate cities recognizing the assets and the potential that exists on the waterfront for commercial development. I mean, that's kind of what blew me away, that they recognized the opportunity and seized it. And so I think a lot of it, a lot of it's attributed to Liz and the hard work she does, the city and the state. But I think, they are a talented team, and they want to be, they being Amazon, a talented team of people. They recognize opportunity, and they recognize that their culture is a great fit with New York City and specifically Long Island City. And I think that that is in a large part why they ended up here.
Great points all around, and just want to go back, a quick plug for something that David said earlier. If you've not had a chance to kayak, every year David takes a group from the YMWRA out to kayak, and I went out for the first year a couple months ago, and I said, well, wow, I've kayaked a couple times. I mean, this is pretty easy to get around, and there was probably 15 of us and then 10 instructors. They said, that seems a little excessive, and they basically formed a cocoon around us. And once we got out there, we were leisurely paddling, but once we got out of the harbor, the currents, and then that freight, the huge barge that seemed like it was 20 miles away, and then they started blowing their whistles, move, move, move. It was there within seconds. So do take the opportunity to go out and kayak, but beware of the barges. So public service announcement. Okay, so Jeremy, the MOU states that Amazon needs 4 million square feet now, or within the next 10 years. It could be as much as 6 to 8 million square feet. So we've all read the papers and whether they've actually signed a lease for city for 1 million square feet. We've got another 1.5 million that the city has offered on the ground lease. So where is the Plaxall site? How much of the square footage can it accommodate? And then when is this all going to happen? And I guess part of that question embedded there is the approval process, because this is not a typical process where it's a ULURP or going through the city. This is clearly an expedited process.
All right, I'll tackle that in pieces. I think the first thing, I think you sort of set the stage, but so that we understand what's happening on the waterfront, where the overwhelming majority of their space is going to be developed. It will be comprised, or is currently comprised, of two pieces. One is our piece, and the other is this piece that's owned by the Plaxall company, right? And Amazon will be getting, in partnership with us, will be getting site control of that area, and we're in the process right now of preliminary master planning and figuring out how many towers, where they're configured, how it all interplays with all these great things that we're all planning for, community uses and open space. So where these all sit is sort of still to be determined, and the phasing of it will also be to be determined. But they didn't come make a play like this to sort of slow play the development. They see the need for growth. They recognize the talent in New York. They want to make a big play. And I anticipate that this development, certainly the early phases of this development, will happen as quickly as we can get through the public approval process. And so that gets me to what is the public approval process. A lot of things important about what this approval process is. This is a process called the QTP process, which is not dissimilar from what has happened throughout the city on numerous occasions when big transactions get done through the state. And this is not customized or unique to Amazon in any respect. So we're going to get through that process. I don't know that it's expedited. I think it's going to be a process where there's going to be a lot of community input, a lot of input from lots of people, and I think it's going to be very transparent. I think that's important to the company, it's important to probably the city and state also, and important to us. There should be no confusion about how this is going to be rolled out, and I don't think anyone's trying to hardball here right now. We're again in early planning stages. We're going to get a lot of community input, and I think we're going to ultimately create something that works for everyone. And there's some and look, one of the challenges in these early stages is after the announcement, a lot of news came out and a lot of detractors surfaced, or some detractors surfaced, but they're loud and it feels like, or it sounded like there's a lot of resistance. I think at the end of the day, when the real information comes out about what the benefits are, what's included in this project, then I think will win over the community, because I think it's extraordinary. I think everything that we committed to with respect to community and space is going to be fulfilled in spades by this new project. Our project had speculative office space, a lot less than obviously what's going to get developed in this project. We had lots of open space, 3.5 acres of open space, affordable industrial spaces that would be rented to artists and makers, and that's all going to be preserved in spades at this project. So there's I think the theme of this is that there's something in this for everyone, and once the facts get out about it, I think it'll make people a lot more comfortable. And that's kind of our job, and it's Amazon's job, and the job of the city and the state to sort of make sure that people understand what the reality is and what's going to be included in this project.
It's great to point out, and that there has been criticism about the incentives, and we gave, New York State and the city gave way too much money, and look at it compared to DC. But my understanding is all these incentives are performance-based, meaning that we do not give the incentives unless there are jobs created. So, if between the three of you, if anyone wants to talk about these incentives, and then to Jeremy's point, the benefits to the community, and because it is going to do great things for the area as well.
Yeah, let me jump in for 1 second, just about that. I mean, there's this misconception that this was a bad deal, or there are two things about the deal. One, it's the misconception it's a bad deal, or that it's a special deal, corporate giveaway, that type of rhetoric. Two things on that. One, this is, as Liz was saying earlier, this is one of the best deals, if not the best deal, and the greatest job creator in New York State history. Okay. 186 billion of economic impact, positive economic impact over the next 25 years. 186 billion dollars. Okay, 14 billion of taxes to New York State, 13.5 billion dollars of taxes to New York City. Okay, 9-to-1 public return on the public investment. I mean, this is extraordinary numbers that I think, if you look through history, it's unprecedented. Okay, so you put aside the fact that what we're doing to the New York City and the broader New York State economy is diversifying ourselves. 25,000 plus. The full expectation is that there will be more, but let's just say it's a baseline, 25,000 jobs, direct jobs at Amazon, tech jobs that are going to further diversify the New York City economy, set us up for the next 100 years, diversify us out of the financial sector, enable us to weather storms much better than we have in past recessions. Then you talk about all the indirect jobs and the indirect economic benefit that results here. A lot of construction jobs, union construction jobs. All these jobs that will flow into Long Island City because people will draft off of the success of this effort. So, I mean, not enough can be said about the economic tension that this will create for New York City. As far as like this being a corporate giveaway or backroom deal, let's also set the record straight about what programs or special deals were done here. The city didn't provide any unique deals. As I think Dave was saying earlier, they relied on as of right incentives like ICAP and REAP, and those are benefits that Amazon will receive as they build and grow into their spaces. Employees are hired as buildings are created. Same the state used the Excelsior tax program. I mean, that's something that's out there and has been used repeatedly. So it wasn't set up as a sort of a corporate giveaway. Again, it's not something they're directing capital to in the hopes that jobs get created. As jobs get created, they get the tax credits, and so that's an important element. I think that ties. I'm just going to make one more thing that ties to this other misconception that people have been writing about and speaking about, this idea that, well, New York State or New York City should have made a decision to to direct this money, this corporate giveaway, to other things the community needs. Well, it goes to this theme of creating a virtuous cycle where you create the economic incentives and the benefits for companies to come in and create jobs. That will create revenue. That will create prosperity for the city. That will enable the city to provide these services and infrastructures and progressive programs that we all support and know the city needs. But you need prosperity in order to provide that and make that progress and make those other additional capital improvements. So, my view is that if you really understood how these incentives are designed and understood the need for New York City to grow in order to create these programs for the future and this reinvestment in the community, you'd be a big supporter of this and other opportunities to bring companies into this economy.
It was really well put, and I'm glad you ran through those numbers as well about the economic benefit. And I want to maybe do 5 more minutes up here, and then we'd love to open it up to questions. So, David or Liz, if you want to tack onto that, and then also maybe we can talk a little bit about the infrastructure needs, and as David both Liz pointed out, you already have tremendous transportation, but what other kind of needs is Long Island City going to have now, and with this economic benefit, to be able to support that?
Well, one of the benefits of this deal is that some things that the community has needed for a long time can be supported through this project. So Jeremy had a great project in the woods that's increasing by almost 25% the jobs in the area. But even in New York, that is huge. Most of the big deals that have been done have been retention deals. So, we shouldn't get too jaded. This is a very big opportunity, not only in and of itself, but for all of the support that we're going to get from having a great partner in the neighborhood.
Yeah, 25,000 jobs, that would make them New York City's second largest employer. To speak to the size and the impact it will have on the economy.
It's a great point. If you look at today's New York Times, Microsoft is announcing a $500 million initiative to support affordable housing in Seattle. If you look at what Amazon could do in New York City, you don't have that type of company that has that kind of power, that kind of pocketbook, to be an ally of private citizens, public citizens, to be able to push the government and to be able to fund all of these programs. So when we talk about upgrading the boilers of Queensbridge houses, that is a fairly small check that a company the size of Amazon can write. When we look at all of the companies that are currently out there right now, in our building we've got the JetBlue headquarters, which was a huge deal. When we look at the amount of incentives that JetBlue got on a per employee basis, not crazy compared to the per employee basis that Amazon is getting. These are as of right programs. Amazon was very smart. They came into an area that REAP qualifies for. Opportunity Zone qualifies for it. These are great as-of-right incentives. When you look at Google, I think James said 7,000 Google employees are here. Where did they go? They went to Manhattan, therefore they didn't qualify for the as-of-right incentives out there. They kind of took the easier way out. Manhattan's already Manhattan. Amazon is taking somewhat of a, kind of a pioneering role and coming to the waterfront of Long Island City, where large companies haven't existed yet. Inland, a little bit inland, you've got Court Square, you've got Queens Plaza. There you've got more concrete infrastructure that's already there. The subways are there. City Corp has been there for a long time. Amazon is going to be backfilling a lot of those jobs that City Corp is going to be leaving in One Court Square. Savannah is a nice beneficiary of that. But they're also looking at Estee Lauder is now a 200,000 square foot tenant of ours. JetBlue, MetLife, and Liz's building on Queens Plaza. These are significant companies that have all gotten the same as-of-right benefits, but they didn't get 25 to 40,000 jobs worth of benefits. They got 1,000 jobs. So it was less of a headline when you start multiplying by the numbers that we're talking about. And by the way, this is over a 10 to 12 year period of time, that 25,000 jobs. That just the multiplication alone is making this into a couple $1 billion type of incentive package. But absolutely worthwhile and absolutely a wonderful, wonderful investment for our city to try to diversify away from, if you were here in 2008, I don't know that you had this breakfast in 2008, but it was doom and gloom. And every politician and every real estate reporter and every one of us was saying, how do we diversify this city away from financial services? And how many of our friends were on Wall Street that didn't have a job for X number of years? This is a great diversification tool away from Wall Street, away from financial services, that this is the future of our world, technology. This is where young people want to work. They don't want to work on Wall Street. They want to work at Amazon. They want to work at Google. They want to work at Facebook. New York is now going to be the headquarters of that work.
Perfect. Well, I think with that, we will open up for questions. I will warn you, if you ask anything offensive, I really want to... Order! Yes. God.
You and I have spoken about this before. Long Island City has seen tremendous investment sales, the industrial for conversion to office, and over 15,000 new residential units. But nobody's addressed the needs of the employees and the people that are going to live there. There's still a big shortage of retail. Part of it is, so two-part question. Part of it is, the current zoning doesn't allow for big box greater than 10,000 feet, so that's restricted the ability for supermarkets and big discounters to come in. A, and B, there's also a maximum, because Long Island City has great infrastructure for mass transit, but a lot of people drive, and there's a maximum parking also in the city zoning. And whenever I drive to Long Island City, I can never find a parking spot. How are some of those needs going to be?
I'm glad you bring up these points. I will say I disagree that nobody's dealt with the people who live there. There's a lot going on, but we're also at a moment that's tremendously exciting for retail. Before we even get to Amazon, this huge boom in construction that we've had is doing two things that's helpful for retail. One, it's created a lot of square feet of retail, which you can see again on the sheet I handed out. So streets like Jackson Avenue, which had very little retail, now all these buildings, the construction fencing is coming down, the retail is opening up. So we are getting more retail, but we're also getting more people. Retail can't survive without customers. And so all these new residents coming in, the Bloomingdale's employees, others, are customers for the existing retail as well. One of the things that is exciting about Amazon is that they have made it very clear that they design their buildings to get their people out into the community. They don't give away free food, free beer, free this, free that. They don't have an on-site gym. They don't do all those kinds of things. So they design their own buildings to have street-level retail, and then they design their corporate structure inside to get people out into the community. There's a great article in today's Queens Courier, Donna Dremmer, who's a great leader in retail on Vernon Boulevard, and she is really excited about this because she is excited for these customers to come to Vernon Boulevard, to come to her business. Amazon has said that it wants to have neighborhood-based retail, but we also have some great leaders in retail in Long Island City. So Patricia Dunphy, who's just become the chair of the board from Rockrose, is really been a visionary in how to curate retail so that it is neighborhood-based. Big box stores, honestly, there's big box stores in the larger area, but to create that human feel in amongst these class towers and so on, a lot of what we need is, and as she's put in, a bookstore, a coffee shop, a chemist, not just a Dwayne Reed, but an interesting drugstore. So we have a retail committee effort that's them. Tishman Spire is going to do very interesting things in their retail at the Jacks. and also through the bid, which we've now expanded to Vernon Boulevard and elsewhere, trying to do efforts to help strengthen those areas as pedestrian environments so that people will go to the retail. But it has been a challenge. A lot of the people in the buildings, these were designed at a time when Long Island City, from a residential point of view, was kind of a wasteland, you know, the Wild West, tumbleweed, someone was saying. So the buildings were all designed as islands, you know, highly amenitized. You never have to leave. And now with the delivery culture and everything. So when you talk to people who are developing sort of the next stage of buildings, they're thinking, okay, how do we can now turn out. We don't have to just face in. So we have to do more to attract people out onto the street. But anybody who's in retail shows you that you need a demand curve that includes the morning, the middle of the day, the afternoon, and the evening. And you only get that if you have people who both live and work in the area. We have too many people who just get on those subways and leave. We need people to stay. Again, that is one of the advantages of the Amazon development. And when it comes to transportation, yes, we have a huge need to rethink transportation in the area because people want to circulate. They don't just want to go in and out of Manhattan. But again, that's something that we now have a big ally on. I will say that I believe Queens is supposed to be the next borough for the fast forward redesign of the New York City transit system, and we're really excited about that and some of the things that Andy Byford has come up with. These things were issues even before Amazon came on the board, but now I think we have a better chance of addressing them.
Yeah, it sounds perverse to say, but Amazon's actually going to be good for retailers and mom and pop retailers. The whole e-commerce, the decimating retail across the city. If you look at James's report of why retail is so far down in New York City, it's somewhat because of Amazon. But here you got Amazon bringing 25,000 to 45,000, $150,000 a year paying jobs, all coming to right now Court Square and then eventually the waterfront. They've actually divided their campus kind of nicely. So if you're looking at investment, you got a bunch of investment salespeople here. 44th Drive is going to be an amazing place to be investing in. You've got Court Square to waterfront. That entire alley right there is going to be chock full of great retail opportunities. Jeff Bezos was at Levante LIC, I forgot to tell you that, and by himself, no entourage, no bodyguard, no wife, and he was hanging out at the greatest brick oven pizza place with an awesome cocktail bar on Jackson Avenue, a block away from Court Square. And this is what the Amazon culture likes. These are young people, they're millennials, they want to go to the hyper artisanal cheese places that Murray's is coming to Jack's, they want to come to the cocktail bars. We've got an incredible collection of great retailers out there. You kind of have to know where to go, but with Amazon coming on all these jobs, they're really going to be front and center on Jackson and 44th Drive.
We have time for one more question. Yes, Marty.
First of all, congratulations to everyone. This is a wonderful, exciting project. I'm a lifelong resident of the borough next door, Brooklyn. And one question specific to transportation. Do we see this project as being a catalyst of DQS playground project?
I thought we could call it the Amazon Express. Maybe they can pick that up.
Somebody corrected me yesterday, it's supposed to be the QBX. Look, that need for Brooklyn Queens transportation, for better transportation along the waterfront, has been present, which is what drove the proposal for that opportunity. I mean, all you have to do is you go to the bike corral outside of the 7 train station at Vernon Jackson, and you see all the bikes that have come over from Greenpoint, and people lock their bike up for the day and get on the subway. We need that not only because of people now coming for jobs and so on, but because we have better transportation than North Brooklyn. Again, a lot more transportation deserts there, and a lot more dependence on one subway, as we saw with all the talk about apocalypse and so on. So we definitely need this enhanced transportation, and the city is released its analysis, its proposal. There's going to be a ULURP process around that that's going to be kicking off soon, moving all that forward. I think we, it's an enormous 10-year project with all kinds of complicated things, but the need for that waterfront-oriented north-south transportation going all the way from up by the Triborough Bridge down to Red Hook is definitely present. It is the way the world is going to work in the future, where people are going to be less Manhattan-centric. And it's great to deliver people to great opportunities like Amazon from all over. I mean, that's part of why they came, is it's not just like you sit in Long Island City and that's it. You know, we're connected to everything. You did mention Cornell Tech. That's right across the way, you know, the ferry, but even before the ferry with the F train and the bridge. But the ferry system is incredibly valuable, and we need landside transportation to get people from the ferry further into Long Island City. In Manhattan, you get that. You know, we need to have that as well. So I think, you know, I don't want to do what you did, which is make a prediction that I could be very wrong about in the future. But I think the need is very present, and we'll see how it all plays out, and whether it's that or it's some other form of transportation. The waterfront is going to be served more in the next 10 years, no question about it.
But until the QBX gets launched, you can kayak with me and James.
All right, I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you so much.